out how to subtract integers. So before we do that, let's look at our number routine. How do you know? How do you know that 5 plus negative 3 is the same as this number line representation? Well, as I can tell, it started at 0. It went 5 units to the right. Then I put together another arrow that goes 3 units to the left. So the answer, as you can tell, is 2. If you do not believe me, we could draw it out. I can draw 5 positives. 1, 2, 3. So I draw 5 positive. I put it together with 3 negatives. What happens when you have a positive and negative together? All of these become 0 pairs. You are left with 2. Mentally, if I have 5 positive and 3 negatives, what do you have more of? More positive by 2. Positive 2. So, let's look at our do now today. A cyclist travels downhill for 125 feet. Then she travels uphill for 50 feet. Write an addition expression to describe each situation, then determine the sum. So if it goes downhill for 125 feet, that's to write it as an integer, a whole number and its opposite including 0. I write it as negative 125 plus, then it go uphill. Then after she goes to 120 feet downhill, then it goes up the hill 50 feet. That's positive 50. So now let's find the sum of this. I could draw 125 negatives and 50 positive and 0 amount. What would you have left? I will have 75 negatives as the answer. So it's negative 75 feet. There are more negatives by 75. So subtracting integers. Simplify the expression. By the end of this lesson, you're going to realize that you can rewrite a subtraction expression to an addition expression. If you subtracting integers, when you subtract integers, if you know how to add integers, you pretty much know 80 to 90% are how to subtract integers already. Just about 2 or 3 steps, and then you'll have the answer. So let's start with the very first one. 7 minus 3 is 4. The equivalent of the addition expression is 7 plus negative 3, which is also 4. Are they equivalent? Yes, they are. Because I draw 7 positive, I draw 3 negative. I cancel out. What do I have left? 4 positive. So by the end of this lesson, we are going to be able to rewrite the subtraction expression to an addition expression. So in this lesson, using counters, the yellow will represent positive integers, the red will represent negative integers, and when you have a positive and negative, it represents 0 pair. So we start with 5 positives. 1, 2. Let's start off very easy. Why is 5 minus 4 equal to 1? Using counters, I have 5 positive. I will take away 4 of the positives. The answer is 1. Let's try another example. I have 4 negatives. I need to take away 2 of these negatives. So I'm going to take these 2 away. What do you have left? Negative 2. Pretty straightforward, hopefully. Let's try another example. I have 5 negatives. I need to take away 5 negatives. So I'm going to take all of these away. If I take all of these away, what do I have left as my answer? I have 0 as the answer. What is negative? So, remember earlier I said that if you know how to add integers, you pretty much know 80% or 85% of how to subtract integers. What's negative 5 plus 5? If I have 5 negatives, as such, and I have 5 positives as such, what happens to these 5 negatives and 5 positive? They will all become 0 pair, so they will also become 0. That's weird. The subtraction expression has the same value as this addition expression. So how can I rewrite this subtraction expression into an additive expression? Seemed like we both started with -5. This one took out 5 negatives. This one added 5 positives. And they both had 0. Let's look at it. 8 minus 2 is 6. So we have 8 minus 2 is 6. And what's 8 plus -2? That is also 6. So the subtraction expression is equivalent to this addition expression. How can I rewrite this? So what do you notice about the two columns? They both have the same value. What I noticed, they both started with an 8. They both start with the same number. This one has subtraction. This one has addition. This has a 2, while this has a -2. This has a -5, and this has a 5. Can you surmise any rules, your own rules yet? Let's try some more examples so you can. So I have 7 negatives. 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. According to this, I need to take out 5 of the negatives away. So if I take out these 5 negatives away, I have -2. On this one, I have 7 negatives. So in the subtraction one, the answer is -2. Let's look at the addition expression. I have 7 negatives as soon as I can grab them, and I have 5 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What happens when you put these 5 negatives with these 5 positive? They become 0 pair. So it also is -2. They both have the exact same value. So how can I rewrite the subtraction expression into an addition expression? Because if you know how to do addition expression, you pretty much know 85% of how to do a subtraction integer. They both started with -7. This was a subtraction. This is an addition. This is a -5, while this is a 5. All right, let's try another example. We have -3. I need to take out 2 of the negatives. So I take these 2 negatives out. I'm left with -1. While in this example, I have 3 negatives, and I add or put together 2 positives. These cancel out because they're 0 pair, and it's also -1. So what do we notice about the two columns? They both have the same value of -1. This one is subtraction. This is addition. They both started with -3. This is subtraction. This is addition. This is a -2, while this is a 2. That's weird. What's the opposite of -2? 2. And this one, what's the opposite of -5? 5. Let's look at a previous example. What's the opposite of 2? -2. What's the opposite of -5? 5. Have you figured out how to subtract integers yet? If not, at the end of the video, I will tell you what it is. But hopefully you can figure out on your own. Now let's get to a little harder where we talk about 0 pairs. If you have 3 negatives and I need to take away 2 of positives from it, can I take 2 positives from these 3 negatives? The answer is no. So what do we have to bring in so that we can take 2 away from the -3? Do you remember earlier I said something called 0 pairs? Well, we're going to bring in 0 pairs. So we're going to add 0 pairs to it. So I add 2 0 pairs to it. So Because when you add a zero pair, it's like adding 0 to something. Does it change its value? It does not. So now can I take away 2 positives? Yes, I can. I can take away these 2 positives. So in other words, I have -3. I added 2 negatives, so the answer is -5. So let's write that down. I started with -3. I added 2 zero pairs, but then I took away the 2 positives, and I'm left with adding 2 negatives. So -3 plus -2 equals -5. So this is also equals to -5. Have you figured out the subtraction integer rule yet? We started with -3. This we added 0 pairs. And what's the opposite of 2? -2, and we come up with -5. And this one also -5. So let's practice some examples. Hopefully it's forming into your brain on how to subtract integers. So if you have 6 positives, arrow. If you have 6 positives, 1, 2, and I need to take away 2 negatives. Can I take away 2 negatives from this? No, there are no negatives to take away from it. So we need to add some 0 pairs. So we need to add 2 0 pairs. Now can I take away 2 negatives? I can take these 2 away. So we started with 6. I'm added 2, positive 2 to it. So the answer is 8. Hey, what is 6 plus 2? 8. So we started with 6. We're adding 2 positives to it. 6 add 2 positives. Let's try another example. We have 2 negatives. Can I take away 4 negatives from this? Do I have enough? No. So we need to add 4 pairs of 0 pairs. 1, 2, there. So now can I take away 4 negatives? I take away these 4 negatives. So it seemed like I added 4 positives. So I started with 2 negatives. I added 4 0 pairs. I took away the 4 negatives. I'm left with 4 positives. So -2. I'm going to type this up. So I started with -2. I added 4 positives. It's right here. So it seems as I changed the subtraction expression into an additive expression. And what is -2 plus 4 going to equal to? 2. Because these will 0 pair out. And what do you have left? Positive 2. Have the rule formalized into you yet? If you haven't figured out yet, we keep the first number. We're adding 0 pairs, so we change the subtraction to an adding, and then we're doing the opposite of the second number. Opposite of -5 is 5. So let's see. What's -3 take away 5 negatives? So if I have 3 negatives, 1, 2, 3. I need to take away 5 negatives. Do I have enough to take away? No. So I need to add some 0 pairs to this. I need to add 5 pairs of 0 pairs. That goes there. Now can I take away 5 negatives? Yes. So I am left with this. I started with -3. I added 5 positives to it. -3 plus 5 is equivalent of saying -3 minus -5. And what is negative 3 plus 5? Well, these three will cancel. We'll turn a zero pair with this one. So we're left with, the answer is 2. So if you have not figured it out by now, we are going to be learning something called adding the opposite. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. If you know how to add integers, you pretty much already know how to subtract integers. So what you do is you keep the first number. You keep the first number alone. You change the subtraction sign to an addition. So you keep the first number, you change the subtraction, or you flip the subtraction sign to addition, and then you change the sign of the second number to the opposite. That's why it's called adding the opposite. So, for example, we have 5 minus 4. Of course, you can say, oh, that equals 1. Can I turn this subtraction to an addition expression? I leave 5 alone. I keep it the same. I change the subtraction to an adding. What's the opposite of 4? Negative 4. And what is 5 plus negative 4? I have more positive by 1, so it equals 1. So I change 5 minus 4 can be rewritten as 5 plus negative 4 equals 1. Let's try another example. Let's do 6. Let's do negative 4 take away negative 3. If I have 4 negatives, can I take away 3 negatives? Yes, I can. I am only left with 1 negative. Can I rewrite this subtraction as an addition expression? So I keep 4 negatives because that's what I started with. So I flip the subtraction to addition, and I add. So I'm adding the opposite. What's the opposite of negative 3? 3. And what's negative 4 plus 3? That's also equal to negative 1. So negative 4 minus negative 3 is the same as saying negative 4 plus 3. They both give you the same value. So, and we're going to practice with 3 examples. Can you rewrite each subtraction expression into an additive expression? So, would you like to use models first? All right, I'll use models first. I start off with 5. 5 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is what, so I'm going to keep this. I need to take away 8 positives. I don't have enough to take it away from. So I'm going to have to draw some 0 pairs. So I'm adding 8 0 pairs to it. Now, can I take away 8 positives from this? I could take this one, I could take this one, I take this one, I take this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So I added 8 negatives. So what I just did, I started with 5 positives. I added 0 pairs, so I added 8 negatives. So I rewrote the subtraction to an addition expression. So I kept the 5, I turned the subtraction, I added, and what's the opposite of 8? Negative 8. And what is 5 plus negative 8 going to equal to? I have more negatives by 3, negative 3. 5 minus 8 is the same as saying 5 plus negative 8 equals negative 3. Let's try another example. I start with negative 1. Can I take away 4 positives from this? No, I'm going to have to do some 0 pairs. So I need to add 4 0 pairs. So that's 2 pairs. All right. Now, can I take away the 4 positives? Yes, I can. Delete. So what am I left with? I am left with, I started with -1. I added, did you see how I added extra negatives? I added how many negatives? 4 negatives. So, adding the opposite. I kept the -1. I turned the subtraction to an adding. And what's the opposite of 4? -4. So the answer is -5. And last but not least, I have 5 negatives. 1, 2, let me extend my page. So I have 5 negatives. I need to take away 6 negatives. Do I have enough to take away? No, I do not. So I need to draw some 0 pairs. I need to add 6 0 pairs to this. So that's 1, 2, whoops. That's 4 0 pairs and 6 0 pairs. So now can I take away 6 negatives from this? Yes, I can. Delete. So it seemed like I added 6 positives. So how do I write the subtraction expression as an addition expression? I start with -5. I added 6 positive. So I kept -5. I added subtraction to it, adding. And what's the opposite of -6? 6. And what's -5 plus 6? It will equal 1. So what did we learn today? We learned that you can turn a subtraction expression into an adding expression using the term add the opposite. So is 3 minus 5 equivalent to 3 plus -5? Let's see if that is correct. I'm going to get my... Oh, are they equivalent? Let's see. I kept the 3. I added, and what's the opposite of 5? -5. And if you do not believe me, do we need to see a model of this? Well, I'm going to show you a model. So I start off with 3 positives. I need to take away 5 positives from this. Do I have enough to take away 5 positives? No, I don't. So I need to add 0 pairs to this. So I need to add 5 0 pairs to this. 1 0 pair, 2 0 pair, 4 0 pair, and 5 0 pairs. Now can I take away 5 positive? Yes, I can. So I started with 3 positive. I added 5 negatives to it, and the answer will be -2. So I rewrote the subtraction to an addition using add the opposite.